In this tutorial, we'll be going over how to implement an advanced health bar, where you have multiple layers to the bar that give a nice, smooth motion in the vein of what you might expect from a game like Elden Ring. I want to point out that FromSoft's health bars are not generally the sexiest things out there, but good game design, and that includes user interface, is primarily about how intelligently and clearly you can communicate an idea to a player. So this style of health bar is actually great for an action game because the player instantly sees where their health is at while still knowing at a glance how much exactly their health has changed. So let's get to it. So I've just got Microsoft Paint here opened up, and I'm going to go to Image Properties and set this to 500 by 30, something wide and short to look like a health bar. There's not really a built-in image inside Unity that will work the way I want this to, so that's why I'm doing this. I'm going to save this as a PNG, import it into Unity, call it health bar image. We'll set it to be a sprite in the texture type and the sprite mode to single, and then apply that. You should be able to see that this image now has a sort of sub sprite image there. Now let's go create a canvas, and we'll call this advanced health bar canvas. And we'll want to go set the UI scale mode of our canvas to scale with screen size and make it 1920 by 1080. Now we can create an image underneath this, and we'll call this the health bar frame. And we'll set the width to 500 and the height 30. And let's anchor it now at the top left, where you'd probably expect a health bar to be. Zero that out, and then lower it a little bit and move it to the right. And I think that's a little too close to the top of the screen for my taste, so let's lock this into 300 and drop this to maybe -50. I think that looks a little better. Okay, let's actually set the width and the height to be slightly more than our image we created with Microsoft Paint, because this is going to be the frame, so we want it to sort of be visible just along the borders beyond where our health bar will actually be. Now we'll copy and paste this and call this our back bar, and we will resize this one to be precisely 500 by 30. And then we'll open up this image component and drag in our health bar image. And since this is a bar, we don't actually want it to be white, we want it to be, well, we don't want it to be green. This is the back bar, so I actually want that to be yellow. And then we can just duplicate this, call it the front bar, and we'll set that one to be green. Now, if you select both of these images, you can go down here where it says image type and change that from simple to filled. And you can see this fill amount, we can drag it around and it'll change how filled the image is, but we don't want it to be radial. We want it to be horizontal and starting from the left. And now there you go. That looks like a health bar. So if we drag the front one back, this will show kind of what the behavior is supposed to look like. We want the yellow bar to smoothly follow along to catch up to the green bar after it is set to whatever it's set to when we take damage. Speaking of which, let's create a button underneath our canvas, and we will call this our Take Damage button. You might have to import Text Mesh Pro Essentials, so go ahead and do that if that pops up, and name this Take Damage button. I'm going to change the text here to say take damage. And I'm just going to resize the button a little bit, make it look a little nicer. So we'll widen this to around 225 and raise the height to 50. Just make it look a little cleaner. And let's drag up to the left, and I'll set this to -300 because later I want to add another button and I'll have that one off to the right a little bit. But for now, let's just do that. So let's go create a folder called scripts. And inside that folder, we will create a new mono behavior, which we will call advanced health bar. And once that's finished compiling, drag that health bar script onto your advanced health bar canvas. It actually doesn't matter where you place it, but I feel like that's just a logical place where I'll remember I've put it there. Now let's open this script up and delete our start and update methods. We're going to go through and start adding all of our references. So I like to organize these with headers when I remember to do so. It doesn't actually matter. It's just a an organizational preference, but I think it makes things look cleaner once we're back in the editor. Now you'll see I'm using serialized field a lot. A lot of times when you see tutorials, sometimes even directly from like Unity themselves, they just put public for everything. It's fast and easy, but it's really not good practice. You should default to using serialized field rather than public. The whole point of making something public is so that other components can access it. Serialized field maintains the private nature of a variable while exposing it in the editor so that you can drag and drop things there. So that's really the best practice for that. Now we're going to create these floats, one for max health, one for current health, one for the damage amount, and then we're going to make some more for, I can't really think of a better name to call this than our backbar catch-up logic. But the idea, obviously, is what variables are we creating that have to do with the speed and feel of our smooth motion of our bar. Now, the reason we want these to be serialized and not just private is because if you're in a group of some kind, if you have someone else who's not actually a programmer who doesn't understand the code, but is messing with the game's settings, they may be playtesting and they're like, hey, this health bar seems really slow. I want it to be faster. Let's expose this variable to the editor for them so that they can tweak the speed and they can say, hey, I've messed with this. I set it to 3 and that feels a lot better to me. Having these fields serialized also makes life a lot easier for you as the programmer because having to go back into the code and recompile and do all this stuff every single time can be a real hassle. It's nice to just be able to go into the editor, see, oh, there's our speed float, and I can just drag and drop that number to something else. And you can even do that in real time while you're playing the game in the editor. You can say, I'll demonstrate that later. These private floats that I'm creating are specifically things that you don't need in the editor. It's just going to be used in code, and I don't actually want you to tweak those things in the editor. Now I'm running into kind of a funny problem I have run into a bit lately where I create an image reference without specifying where I'm getting that from. So you can see here it was getting microsoft.unity.visualstudio.editor. I don't want that. I just want to use Unity UI. So that's why I was getting the little red squiggly underneath the front bar.fill amount, because whatever other library I was using to get an image, quote unquote, doesn't actually have a fill amount reference to manipulate. So you need to make sure it's the Unity UI image. Now in the start method, we're just initializing things. It's not necessarily essential because I've initialized things properly above, but this just makes it so that every time we start the scene, we make sure that our current health is equal to our max health, our target fill is set to 1, and the front bar and back bar fill amounts are set to 1. Everything just starts the way we expect. Now our update method is where the magic is going to happen. We'll create a float called current fill, and that current fill is always going to be the current health out of the max health. And we're going to set our front bar to immediately equal that current fill. Now the reason we have to do it this way is because the fill amount of an image is always 0 out of 1. And our current health might not be 0 out of 1, right? It might be 75 out of 100. Well, if we do that math, we do a 75 out of 100, we will get a fraction. That fraction will be somewhere between 0 and 1. And so there you go, you guessed it. We create that float of current fill to represent the percentage of our health, and then we just set the fill amount to equal that. Now the back bar is where things get a little more interesting. We're going to say that if the back bar's fill amount is greater than that current fill, so imagine we've taken damage and our fill amount for our front bar plummets to halfway. Our back bar fill amount is going to be bigger than that right now because we haven't set it. So we want to smoothly over time, and in this case we'll say if back bar timer is greater or equal to delay. So we've created a little delay of say half a second. If after half a second our back bar fill amount is greater than our current fill amount, then we want to smoothly over time move that back bar to match where the front bar is at. So we're using this method called mathf.moveTowards, and we set the back bar.fill amount to move toward the current fill, and then the third comma slot there is how quickly are we going to do that. And so we're going to do speed times time.delta time. You multiply by the time.delta time to make sure that regardless of frame rate, that speed and that motion happens smoothly. Now, if our back bar is not greater than the current fill, then that means it's matched it, it's met up, everything should be equal. Let's make sure definitively by explicitly setting it to be equal, backbar.fillAmount equals current fill. And then we'll set our backbar timer back to 0. Now let's create our take damage method. We're going to make a public void, and I know I just talked earlier about not making things public, but in this case, this is how we want to do it. By making it public, we'll have this method accessible within the editor for our button that we set up earlier. I'll show you that once we're back in the editor. So we're going to set our current health to minus equal damage amount. That is just a nice, cleaner way of saying current health equals current health minus damage amount. It's just a smoother, quicker way to write it out. Then we're going to do current health equals mathf.clamp current health, comma, 0, comma, max health. This clamp method is just to ensure that we don't ever go above our max health or below 0. So if we are at 5 health left and we take 15 damage, it clamps it to be 0. Then we're going to set our target fill to equal current health divided by max health, just like before. And our backbar timer, we will reset to be 0. Now let's go back into Unity after we save that script up. And remember, we dragged our advanced health bar script onto the canvas there. So let's drag the back bar and the front bar references onto their corresponding spots. And as you can see, here are our various references and variables we've set up that we can now manipulate directly in the editor. Let's go to our button, and on the on-click part, you're going to press that plus button, drag in the advanced health bar canvas, find the advanced health bar, and select the take damage method. This makes it so that when we click that button, that method will occur. So let's test it out. And boom, there you go. Our green bar instantly gets set, and then after a short delay, the yellow bar smoothly catches up to it. That's working great. Okay, that looks pretty good. And again, all of these variables are in there that you can tweak to make it feel the way you want. Let's open this back up, and I want to create the ability to heal our character and to display that with our health bar in a nice communicative way similar to what we've already done for taking damage. What we're going to do is the reverse. I realized I put this target fill float in here and then never actually did anything with it. So let's just delete that. And we'll delete this here, scroll all the way down. See, I created this float here inside the update method, and that made my little target fill float redundant. So let's just delete that. We don't need it. Now let's go and create a private bool, and we'll call this is taking damage. And we'll create another bool called is healing. We're going to completely rethink our update method here. So let's just delete everything inside there. We'll create our float. Current fill is equal to our current health divided by max health, just like we had before. But now, instead of immediately setting the front bar, we're going to ask the question, are we taking damage? And if we are, then let's do the logic we were doing before. Front bar.fillAmount equals current fill. So we instantly set the front bar if we've taken damage, and then we're going to smoothly move the back bar fill amount until it's equal to the front bar fill amount, or really until it's equal to the current fill that we've set. That's an important distinction. So we'll do our back bar timer plus equals time.delta time. That's just a way to say that this timer that we've set, this float, is going to track the passage of time. That's just the syntax you use to do that. And then we say if the back bar timer is greater than or equal to the delay, then we actually start doing the smooth motion with the mathf.moveTowards method that we used previously. Now I'm going to say else, in other words, if we're not doing the backbar.fillAmount greater than current fill, if everything's back to normal, I'm just going to create a new method I'll call reset flags. I haven't actually made that yet. I will in a moment, and I'll show you what that means, but it's just a way to kind of clean things up. And then we'll say else if. Now this else, as you can see, lines up with our first if is taking damage. So if we're not taking damage and we are healing, we want to do the exact opposite. We want to say backbar.fillAmount equals current fill. So we're instantly setting the back bar. So the way this is going to look is you should see the yellow bar if you heal immediately pop up, and then we'll have the green bar smoothly catch up to it. Again, these are just nice ways to communicate to the player, hey, you've immediately healed this amount, but how much did whatever it was actually heal you? That's a good way to explain to the player in just a really organic way how valuable whatever it is that healed them is, or how powerful an enemy that damaged them is, things like that. So again, we will be doing the exact same thing, but reverse which bar we're talking about. So the front bar.fillAmount equals mathf.movetowards front bar.fillAmount, current fill, speed times delta time. We'll close that up, and then we will say, just like before, otherwise reset the flags. Now let's create that reset flags method. Create a private method, and we'll call it reset flags. Open this up. And we're just going to set all of our bools back to false and our timer back to 0. Falsel. Set the timer back to 0, and we should be all good to go. So let's save this, open back up the Unity editor. I've already created the heal button. I just duplicated the take damage button, dragged it over to the right a bit, and assigned the heal method, just like we did the take damage method. So let's test this out. Take a bunch of damage. Looks good. Let's try healing. There you go. That looks really nice. So we'll go back into the health bar canvas while we're still in play mode actually, and open up this component. And as you can see, I can change the delay. Maybe I want the delay to be a lot shorter. Let's make it 0.2. And maybe I want the speed double. Let's set it to 3 and see how this looks. As you can see, the smooth motion is way quicker and the delay is much more brief. Just know that if you change things in play mode, in most cases, when you hit stop, it'll go right back to the way it was. So make sure you remember what those variables are, screenshot it, do whatever you have to do. Thanks again to everyone who supports this channel on Patreon. If you value the channel as an educational resource, please consider subscribing or making a purchase of either my latest game or novel, or both. As always, everything will be in the description. See you next time.